I think AI has to shift, and it is pivoting this year based on all the conferences and conversations I've had. I think 2025 is the year when AI is going to pivot towards value generation. The mystery, the awe, the curiosity around AI and Gen AI in the last 2 years, I think is flattened out. Today, every conversation I have with C-suite and folks, CIOs, CTOs, is what is the value generation? Are you able to serve to my top line, my bottom line? So I think the conversation is definitely shifting. AI is less technology, more business.
Welcome to the Trailblazers podcast, presented by BST Global, where we feature the visionaries who are shaping the future of the AEC industry. My name is Eileen Canady, Chief Marketing Officer at BST Global, and your host on today's podcast. Joining me today, we have Lalitha Krishnamoorthy, Vice President of Data and Artificial Intelligence at Stantec. Welcome, Lalitha.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with your personal journey. So your career spans leadership roles at IBM, founding Open Teams Global, and now leading AI at Stantec. Can you share your story and really what led you to this point?
Yes, absolutely. Happy to. It'll be interesting to share that my undergrad degree was actually in electronics and electrical. It had nothing to do with computer science. I started there, but very soon I realized that even to do basic assembly language programming, the programming term kept popping up everywhere I went. And that made me wonder, what is beyond this? You take these chips and then what happens after that? And that led to my curiosity around computer science and kind of just moving towards in that direction. I always loved math in school. And so in grad school, I, obviously had to pick the tougher path. And I said, I want to do my thesis in neural networks. And my advisor, Dr. Dirk, was very supportive because she was part of our computer science department. And she encouraged me a lot to go and look at fuzzy logic, because I felt there's got to be something between yes and no. And that's the maybe in human reasoning. And that got me very excited about computer science. And then from when I finished grad school, I got into IBM. And they were in the very early stages of building complex federated relational database design. And so I started working on the DB2, which is our flagship database product offering, still there, still sells, perhaps rebranded a little bit, but started working on writing the optimizer and compiler code for it. This is like late 90s and early 2000 I'm talking about, where the concept of joining structured and unstructured data and building relational and non-relational data into one thing was very, very nascent. Got to work on stuff that was, extremely powerful. I didn't realize that, obviously, being surrounded by, people that have won the Turing Award was a huge opportunity for me to learn and grow. And there's a joke internal to IBM, which is IBM stands for I've been moved. And that's basically what happened is they kept moving me into roles with increasing complexity and really stretching me in ways that I didn't know I could stretch.
I love that.
And that just took 21 years at IBM, which just went by, and I don't even know how.
In a snap.
Like that. And with the right leaders, the mentors, and the different assignments they threw me into, business development, mergers and acquisition. So even though you're a technologist, it is so important for you to understand and build that business acumen of what does go-to-market look like? What does programmatic marketing look like? Business development, mergers and acquisition. So I feel that entire journey of the 2 decades really kind of completely rounded me off. And then from there, I, got tapped by one of my friends from Austin, and he was in the early process of starting an open source business, and was looking for a co-founder and CEO, and said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I thought, and I've always had a passion for open development, open source, and technology equitability in general. And so that was an interesting pull. So I said, yes, let's go do it. So we started Open Teams Global. It's a global community of open source developers. Believe it or not, there's only 3 million open source developers globally today. And that number really, with OpenAI and all these advancements in AI that's happening, it's really an important point. And so we got into that together. And from there, Stantec came along, and just talking to the Stantec leadership about the areas where we care about sustainability. We're across, 7 business lines: water, energy resources, environment services, buildings, infrastructure, transportation, mining. And just the breadth of that portfolio got me so excited about, what would an AI transformation and AI infusion in this industry of AEC look like? And that's a challenge that, many of us haven't had to face yet, because we've seen the AI revolution in, health tech, in ed tech, in fintech. And that got me interested into AEC and into Stantec.
It's amazing that you had so much opportunity at IBM. I know when I did a little research and we had some conversations on and I love the term "I've been moved," and you've been moved into even projects like Watson, didn't you? You want to talk about Watson?
Absolutely. So this fundamental research around, optimizing our code paths and federated technology finally ended up becoming a huge part of the AI engine that IBM's known, for.
Yes.
Just Watson. Today it's branded as Watson X. And, most people recognize Watson when they talk about Jeopardy.
Yes.
Or, they talk about, Deep Blue when it beat Kasparov in chess. But it's come such a far, we've come so far with Watson. Today, it's been used for early cancer detection at the Sloan Cancer Institute. It's being used in several places that you may not even realize that it's actually behind the wall, and Watson's actually delivering that value. So having a little bit of contribution to that and building such powerful technology that the world can actually use for productive purposes is, I feel it's an honor and privilege that I had a piece of me that I could contribute to that.
Well, Lalitha, I'm sure they feel the same way. It was an honor and privilege to have you on those projects. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
So now here you are at Stantec. So can you tell the audience a little bit about Stantec? What does the company do? What kind of impact does it strive to make? And even developing some projects that we have up on the screen today.
Yes, absolutely. So Stantec is a 33,000 plus people company. In fact, we're the second largest AEC company in all of North America. So it's a pretty big company. And it's a global business. So we have offices almost everywhere in the world. And like I mentioned earlier, we cut across some fundamental business units and business lines, water, and it has its own list of sub-business units, infrastructure, which includes transportation and mining. We are in the energy and services business, so power, nuclear power. And we are in environment services, so supporting clients globally from oil and gas, et cetera. And we are in the buildings business. So we cut across a lot of business lines, but we are a design and architecture firm, consulting firm, and slowly starting to head in the direction of how do we actually digitize ourselves, and how do we increase the footprint of what we're doing. And that's where this example comes in, because today clients are saying, yes, I have the design and architecture, But as they are hearing so much of the tremors around AI, data, digital, our clients who are used to a pretty stable kind of pace are now getting curious
Right.
about what does this mean to us? And their clients are asking them, what should we be thinking about? What should our staff be doing? And overall, if you think about it, there is the entire AI investment globally is $4 trillion. And we have to keep in mind that $4 trillion is not about labor replacement, because the overall global population itself is not 4 trillion.
Right.
Right? So thinking that this is about replacing labor and that's what this investment is going towards is a complete misnomer, just data wise. So I think that's where at Stantec, as the AI leader for this company and taking them on this journey and transformation, a lot of my time is spent on people. What skills do they need? Are we even ready to take on some of these challenges before we even start the work on AI? Let's get the house ready. Let's get the data ready. And let's focus on, what does an ROI look like
Right.
in this scenario? And then obviously there's a lot of it is really on the cultural side. AI is less about, as an AI technologist, I can say this, AI is less about technology. It's a lot about business. And educating and helping the C-suite, our board, our leaders, and our teams understand the true value proposition of AI and kind of guiding them along that path, so we're not, investing, and you can quickly invest a lot of money into this and not get anything back. So that's what we've been doing, is working on projects and offerings, products and assets that will help with a single pattern, but it's an hybrid approach where it tends to multiple use cases. And those are the kind of projects that we're doing, whether that's flood predictor product or a debris flow product, and predictive models to help save human lives. At the end of the day, that's really what Stantec's about, is building sustainable communities.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because Stantec's mission focuses on creating a difference with the community. And so you talked about how AI and digital innovation helps advance that mission, particularly in AI. And there's so many threads that I want to pull in what you just talked about, from the change management application, because that is huge. A lot of people oftentimes say technology is the easy part, people is the hard part. So I think it's the change management aspect that you mentioned, and education. And then also upskilling and reskilling, because that was another key point that I'd love to pull on a little bit further, because people think, oh, AI is going to replace humans. And oftentimes that's really not the case. But there is some sort of upskilling and reskilling. So how do you plan to educate, upskill, reskill the employees at Stantec?
So, and this is, I think there's two parts to this learning and development, right? Part one is there is a set of new designers and architects who are coming into our field, who are already being taught in school and universities. Part of their curriculum is actually machine learning. So they have exposure to this. And if they're working on Autodesk or Revit or Bentley, for design software, the first thing they want to see is, how does Autodesk Cloud work? They're actually touching Autodesk AI Assistant first.
Amazing.
Because that's what they're taught in school now.
Yeah.
So there is that group of people that we need to tend to, because these are the folks who have just come in and they know AI, they know some of the tools and capabilities. Going and telling them what is AI and upskilling them is not a need. What we need to do is, give them the nurturing environment. So at Stantec, one of the things we've done is created sandbox environment. It's a playground.
Yes.
So can they pull, they also have very deep interest in playing with new LLM models, which may or may not be safe. So it's a balance on how you nurture this group.
Yes.
extremely interested and want to do this. And then there is specific guidance for them and environments to encourage that innovation, that forward thinking, because these are the folks who are thinking about parametric design. These are the folks who are talking about how do I reimagine a design workflow so that I am doing, real-time design I can show on my iPad through Stable Diffusion, through Comfy UI, and show it to a client real time on how I'm designing this. And then they can say, move that around. No, I don't want the window there. And this is real time. And imagine how much time and labor it frees up from our industry for these folks to focus on something so innovative.
Right.
So a different kind of training model is needed for them and coaching. The other group is our very, very established and very seasoned designers and principals and engineers who are a little bit skeptical about the value, which understandably, and they're slowly embracing this, but they're also hearing so much from this crowd that they're like, they're working in my team, they're doing something, I don't know what they're doing, so help me with that, so I can manage their work better. And so that's a slightly different kind of training. So at Stantec, what I'm done and we're doing as a team is working with our learning and development team to put together a 3-tier coursework. I have a 3-year plan for this. And the first year is basic 101 AI. But this is not about, the kind of AI education you can find on Udemy or Coursera, right? That's like, what is AI? But what I'm focused on is, what does AI mean to Stantec? Let's personalize this so that every individual within Stantec feels like this is an opportunity for them to grow. And we are making an intentional investment to help them grow in this field. The second tier that I'm imagining is, and I have a vision for, is it's going to be specific to their job roles. Let's say you are a junior water engineer. What does that mean to you to apply AI skills within your day-to-day? What would it mean to a project manager? What would it mean to somebody in our M&BD team? So kind of parsing this out. And then the third tier, really futuristically, is about augmenting, which is where the biggest value of AI is how do I augment whatever you're doing and give you some recommendations and support? So that's the approach we're taking at Stantec, is a very staged, tiered approach. But just let's set the level first, and then we'll build on it in the next couple of years.
And given your expertise in the neuro-symbolic AI, how do you balance driving this AI innovation really with ethical practice like bias, mitigation, data privacy, and transparency?
So this is a very, very complex topic.
Yes.
Even for folks in this field, right?
Yes.
And one of the biggest aspects of neuro-symbolic computing, at the end of the day, what is neuro-symbolic computing? It's a basic hybrid AI approach that does two things very smartly. It finds patterns in data, like any neural network does, which is what AI is, but it also ties it back to human knowledge, reasoning, logic. That's the beauty of neuro-symbolic computing. That's basically what it is. So what it does when it comes to putting AI models in place that you use to train, and you hear about RAG and LLMs and training data, what neurosymbolic, one of the biggest value adds from neurosymbolic AI is it allows you to build in transparency and explainability within your models. So like our frontline workers, like let's say in an energy and utility use case, you can't just tell them, this fault line is broken or this thing is gone. It will actually help a lot more if you can rationalize that and say what happened and how to fix it. And providing that contextual knowledge enriches your frontline workers. It helps us work even more transparently with regulators and policymakers who are curious how you arrived at these decisions. And at the end of the day, it allows you to deliver to your top line and also to your bottom line, because now you can explain your actions. So that is where the connection from neurosymbolic AI and transparency and building explainability into your models comes in.
Well, Lalitha, you make it sound so simple, and I know it's very complex. So thank you for making that simple. It's It's great. And I know you're a strong advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion. So how does fostering an inclusive culture really accelerate the innovation and technology adoption at Stantec?
Yes. So at Stantec, I'm really very, very happy to see that, the senior leadership team, the C-suite is so diverse. And at a point where they are so open to adopting new technologies, finding ways to be more innovative, and even championing this race for our AEC industry as AI champions.
Yes.
Because this is a huge commitment, not just to lead your company, but to be that, front end leader for, all of this industry and guide us along the right path and direction, which is needed.
Right.
And even internally within Stantec, we have a very diverse team, even just within our data and AI team. We pick people so that when they think about models, even flood prediction model when we build, is built by such a diverse team that understands the different neighborhoods. What does that population density look like there? And putting those things in mind when you actually train your model on data sets, it's one thing to talk about it, the other thing to actually apply that so that you have a very diverse team that's applying diverse skills to build this in a way that you actually feel that this is going to benefit the overall population at scale and not a very small set of people and serve that neighborhood or that city.
And you also engage with startups and industry events. So how has that collaboration with some of the broader tech community also influenced your AI initiatives?
So I think one of the things, my thesis, I believe, is that AI is going to be, a game. It's going to be an ecosystem play. This is not a, one winner will take home everything. It just will not work out like that. Because the very essential question you asked before was, how does diversity tie into this?
Right.
The more diverse you are, the more global you are. The more global you are, the more open this needs to be. It's
Right.
just how this is going to play out. And so it cannot be kind of, concentrated in one place. So, so one of the key decisions that, most of us will have to make as we get further into this race is, do I build this at home within the company? Do I buy? There are so many startup players now playing in the startup AI ecosystem. Every day there's a new company, and somebody gave me a number. There were like 600 startups in a week in Bay Area, just AI.
That's amazing.
So there's all these companies trying to find that unique, needle in a haystack kind of a use case or a business value, and start these companies. So sometimes you have to take a step back and say, are they doing something that's going to take me years to build? So it kind of leads to that. And then the third is the partner. So we all have to take a step back sometimes and think, is this a build, buy, or partner conversation? And what is the right option and choice for us for that specific use case?
Absolutely. And that's oftentimes I hear people say AI is the great equalizer because you're able to do so much more in so much less time.
Absolutely.
So, Lalitha, if you go back X amount of years to when you first started out at IBM and 20 years, and your career has seen a lot, and AI has come a long way. If you were to look ahead 5, maybe even 10 years, what are you most excited about?
I would say, if next year, if we're going to sit down and have a conversation about how amazing AI is, I would be super worried. Because I think AI has to shift, and it is pivoting this year based on all the conferences and conversations I've had. I think 2025 is the year when AI is going to pivot towards value generation.
Okay.
The mystery, the awe, the curiosity around AI and Gen AI in the last 2 years, I think is flattened out. Today, every conversation I have with C-suite and folks, CIOs, CTOs, is what is the value generation? Are you able to serve to my top line, my bottom line?
Right.
So I think the conversation is definitely shifting. And it is also just a data point here, which is very interesting that I was reading earlier about is, like I said earlier, AI is less technology, more business. And I'm super serious about that because if you go into macroeconomics, and finally everything leads to business and economics. So, according to macroeconomics, growth comes from three pillars. There is a productivity pillar, there is a population pillar, and there is a debt pillar. Let's be honest here, from a population pillar across the globe, most countries and continents are struggling with trying to get their population rates to go up.
Right.
So it's kind of almost flat. If you look at the debt pillar, what you're seeing is that majority, it's already kind of hit a ceiling, most countries and continents. So what is the only variable that we have to play with in this macroeconomic equation to identify growth is your productivity pillar. Where are you going to get the productivity unless there is catalysts like AI and emerging technology? So my opinion is in the next 2 to 3 years, not even 5, I would say that AI is that catalyst that's going to get you to that productivity pillar, to get that growth. Even shifting your GDP from 2.5 to 2.6% is significant per capita across the globe. So pure macroeconomics point of view, not even AI, we're looking at significant investment, which is why that $4 trillion investment is going. And I think people will be less afraid of this technology because the more they see, 4 trillion cannot be to just replace labor. It is only to replace duplication, redundancy, repetitive stuff. And technology has proven over and over, whether that is business process transformation, digital transformation, or you're talking about ERP transformation. We've seen so many waves. And I think we're at that point where we're going to see this one. The next could be nuclear power. It could be quantum. But whatever is coming, the thing that we have to kind of remind ourselves is this is only going to create more jobs. It is only get us to learn more skills and become even more essential and relevant in this entire global economy that's at play right now.
Lalitha, I love your outlook. I love that because it's, and I completely agree with you. Technology is one piece of the puzzle. What you do with it, and how you can see a return, what you can do with business and the economy. If you were to look back on your career, what's one of the best pieces of advice that you were ever given?
I'll tell you how this played out. I was at a mid to senior point in my career, and I was like, what do I want to do? I've done cloud, I've done AI, I've done some of these things. And I was telling my mentor, I think I'm going to go and I had my PhD. So I was like, I'm going to go and do an MBA, just check out. And this was when I was at IBM. And I told my mentor, I think that's what I'm going to do, and see what I want to do. And he said, and he's still at IBM. He said, Lalitha, that's a brilliant idea. I was like, wow, he agreed. I was surprised. And he said, he said, let's talk again, in a couple of days. You think about this, but I think that's a great idea. And yes, you should absolutely get yourself to grow on the business side. So it's brilliant. I was like, wow, he's actually supportive because usually he'll fight me back, and there's this back and forth, very healthy argument that happens with my mentor. And so I told my husband, my family, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go and get my MBA. And then after I checked in with him in 2 days, he said, so you ready to start your new MBA? And I said, yeah. And he said, yes. So I've spoken with our senior executive in business development M&A. You're going to start your 2-year rotation there.
Oh,
And I was like, no, that's not what I meant. He said, you're going to get an MBA, hands-on MBA. Where else will you learn? And there's a major acquisition we're thinking about. You'd be perfect. And I said, but I'm a technologist. I haven't done this before. I mean, those guys have spent 15 years doing what I have done, hardcore, across verticals in tech. And they have done exactly that over there. He said, that's exactly why they need someone like you there.
Wow.
And so I got planted. I said, no, I got to think about this. And said, there's no thinking. It's done. You're going to do it. You said you wanted an MBA. There's a hands-on MBA for you. No business school can offer you this. And I thought this was finish of my career because I had a great career at IBM. And here he's putting me into this bucket. But I think that was the best advice of taking risk. As we get more comfortable, see, early on in the career, you're open to taking risk.
Right.
When you get to that midpoint to senior, you're kind of like, why should I do that? I mean, that just sounds so different. And I think that just changed my entire outlook on career planning. I stopped planning.
Right.
I don't plan. And because it just made me realize the more you plan, the less you're open to these kind of things. And at the end of the 2-year term that I did, they actually said, we'll make an offer. We need a technologist here because when we assess these companies for mergers and acquisition, Lalitha, we just don't know how to do a technology a fit for our entire business prototype fit.
Wow.
And the pricing, because a lot of these are tech firms that we're trying to acquire. So I didn't understand what I brought to that team until I did it.
Exactly.
So the biggest advice I would say is, take these risks. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. It's okay. And what's the worst? Is you learn, you don't like it. You can say, okay, no, maybe that wasn't for me. But I think that was probably the best advice. And that's probably why I did this startup.
Right.
And Stantec, which
Yes.
is so different, this industry. But it just opened me up. Just
Exactly.
thinking beyond just tech.
Exactly. Well, kudos to your mentor and kudos to you for following through on that on-the-job MBA. And it's amazing what now you're able to contribute to all the organizations, including Stantec. So
Thank you.
Lalitha, I am so impressed with all of your accomplishments, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, and to BST Global for inviting me and for this interview. Really appreciate it.
And thank you to our audience for joining us today on the Trailblazers podcast. Until next time, take care.